So, do you climb off-width?
Yes, I climb off-width.
How do you define off-width?
I define off-width anything bigger than a fist, frankly, although I have pretty big fists, and that actually makes off-width a little bit bigger for me, the starting point, than for most people. And as a matter of fact, I would actually include the biggest fists as off-width as well, I suppose, since commonly it does sort of go in and out of, from as low as a fist to bigger.
Bigger.
Yeah.
What's your favorite off-width? Any favorite?
Twilight Zone is one that stands out as a really good one. Also Road Warrior at Mount Evans, just because I've done that probably 6 times. In fact, that's almost certainly the off-width I've done the most.
Do you have any advice for climbing off-widths?
I came from the era where people did arm bars and chicken wings, and then, combinations that, using your heel toe and sort of, I guess, just general chimney techniques would be, some combination of that is all I had in my repertoire, and in fact, but actually my little 2 cents, although, I don't know, it doesn't seem to work for other people so much, because people talk about, off-width is, you go a 1/4 inch at a time, and I say no, make as big a movement as you can on every move. I like to get up a foot every time something like that, every time I make a move. One thing that's nice about, if you want to actually sort of learn how to do them a little bit, is it's great to find a bouldering area in which you could actually boulder a little bit off. I assume that there's not that many of them. It turns out I grew up in one of the better areas for that, Mount Woodson. So it had boulders that you'd start off top roping them, and after a while you've done them enough times that you could just go up by yourself and do them. So as soon as some of that stuff becomes automatic, it makes it far easier.
When you learn to, how long did it take you before you were soloing the boulder problem? Because sometimes people go right there and they think that they should solo the boulder problems right away because everybody else.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I have a bad memory for personal history. I couldn't tell you exactly, and I wouldn't believe it if I did tell you exactly.
But it did take some time.
Yeah, it certainly did take some time. Yeah, for sure. A place that you can top rope, but just a place that you can easily do it to where the first time you're facing your off-width, isn't 8 pitches up, and I actually learned it as part of just being an all-around climber, and growing up with the idea that once a year you'd go to Yosemite. Your local climbing area would be me, in my case it was Takis and Suicide. But so getting in shape for off-width, or being able to do off-width, was just all a matter, of course, of being able to do big routes in Yosemite. You had to have that as something that you could do. So
When did you know you liked off-widths? Was there a moment?
I never did really like off-widths. I was good at off-widths. Really, in our little group, I was sort of always the off-width gun. At some point, realized that I could do them. And actually, all the Poway climbers were pretty good off-width climbers as a whole. But if it was when we were doing a long climb in Yosemite, a 10-pitch climb or something, we would usually work it out to where I would be the off-width, have the hardest off-width pitch. So, yeah.
So which off-width did you have that breakthrough moment when you knew you could do them?
And I remember Stepping Out is one that stands out a little bit.
So in the valley.
In the valley, right. Twilight Zone, I did Twilight Zone actually pretty easily on the hindsight.
So Lost Arrow Chimney is sort of a hallmark climb.
Yeah.
And which you did free. You soloed it.
Mm-hmm.
That was on site too?
Yep.
Or?
Yep.
And so you felt confident enough in your skills?
Yeah. Yeah, back then, really, I feel like if you could do 511, something at the 510A level, I just felt like, oh, come on, there's no way I would fall out of that, and turns out on that climb, it wasn't, and I guess going into it, I must have known this. I would have hoped I would have known this, but turns out the really cruxy part is not off-width really at all. It's this funky sort of face climb, but you're moving out of a chimney in order to get to it. and that was actually scary for me. But all of the other stuff was
Solid, yeah.
was easy for me, and
So you also did pipeline. I guess that's another often talked about
yeah,
up in Squamish, which still to this day impresses the old Squamish climbers.
yeah.
But that was what
The
10
Canadians
years.
like me. I've got a lot of cachet or something out of doing pipeline.
On Astroman, the Harding slot looks like an off-width, and you look up and there's sort of, it's a squeeze chimney, but there's this slight widening as you look up, and you aim for that widening, because apparently John Long, and he told me this in around 1981 when I met him, and we were able to go inside it, but John told us the following year that he had to actually off with the thing. I couldn't believe that anybody would have been able to off with that thing on the outside. There's no way. But he did.
Cameron could.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
He was amazing off with climber, though, and always
He is
has
still,
been.
yeah.
Oh,
And there's the thing. I haven't done any of the famous or important off-wits at Squamish.
That's
or,
Anders. But famous and important when combined with the word off with.
well, like pipeline.
Pipeline is, I would say,
Is it important?
infamous.
Is it important?
Is it important though?
Mhm.
Like as far as climbing,
Be
like
nice, I'm going to tell Greg.
well, Greg Cameron notwithstanding,
I just remember that was such a fun time in my life. And I had done the Lost Arrow Chimney the year before. I hadn't really thought it was a trip. It was one of 3 times in a row I think we went up to Squamish, like maybe 77, 78, and 79, and this was in 79. And I remember Perry, Perry Beckham, he was there. And as I remember it, again, I don't have very good personal history recollection, but Perry at least showed me it. It's not, in fact, I'm sure Perry didn't suggest it, but right, but it just looked like, it just looked like something I could do, and it turned out I could. And that was all pure off-width. I mean, the thing about those on a free solo is, you're really not going to come out of them. I mean, if, again, if the level I was climbing at, something that was at the 5'9", 5'10" level, and I don't know in the end how much 5'10" was on that. But I just think of those as magical times, because I was in a cycle for a while where we'd go to the valley in the spring, and then we'd go to Squamish, because it would get too hot. In fact, we'd go to the valley, then Tuolumne, go back to San Diego for a little bit, go to Squamish.
Uh-huh.
And